ICQ Podcast episode 489, STEM and Radio for a Brighter Future. Well, hello fellow Amateur Radio enthusiasts and welcome to episode 489 of your ICQ Amateur Radio podcast. Supported this episode by Chris Carney, Golf Whiskey 4 Romeo Echo Romeo, Walter Washburn, KT0 Delta, and Costadine Dino Papas, KL0 Sierra, and of course our wonderful monthly and annual subscription donors. In this episode we join Martin M1MRB, Chris Mike 0 Tango Charlie Hotel, Martin Mike 0 Sierra Golf Lima, Frank Kilo 4 Foxtrot Mike Hotel, Bill Whiskey Charlie 3 Bravo, and Leslie Golf 0 Charlie India Bravo to discuss the latest amateur radio news. Myself, Colin M6BOY, rounds up the news in brief. And this episode's feature is a feature where we look at how STEM and radio can come together for a brighter future. Now, as I mentioned, it's your very kind donations that keep your ICQ Amateur Radio podcast advert free, and we follow a very simple model. It's called the value for value model, and what we hope is that you take the product we give you for free, you find some value from the product, and you kindly return it back to us by visiting ICQPodcast.com/donate. Well, as I say, any figure that you put on the value you got from the show goes towards the running cost of the show and keeping your ICQ podcast advert free. This episode, along with our monthly and subscription donors, we'd like to thank the following listeners: Chris Carney, Golf Whiskey 4 Romeo Echo Romeo, and Walter Washburn, KT0 Delta, for sending us very kind birthday donations. So we do appreciate it, because this month is the ICQ Podcast 18th birthday. And on that level, Costadine Dino Papas, Kilo Lima 0 Sierra, long-term donor. He always sends in at the birthday time. So he says, happy birthday again, guys. Getting close to number 500. 73s from Dino. So thanks, Dino, for your very kind donation. So Dino, Chris, Walter, and the monthly and subscription donors, they keep your show advert free. So do consider the value you get from your ICQ podcast, and do visit ICQpodcast.com/donate for showing that value back. We'd also like to remind you that the next Digital Talk Group Net is coming up. It's happening next weekend on Saturday the 1st of August. It will take place between 1200 UTC and 1600 UTC. Please join us. You can get a chance to your fellow ITQ podcast listeners, and maybe also catch your favourite presenter too. So well worth joining us for that talk group. All the information you need on how to join the talk group is available at ICQpodcast.com. Right, now we're going to join Chris, Martin, Frank, Bill and Leslie to discuss and generate thoughts about the latest amateur radio news, including ham radio AI launched and satellite news. As always, hope you enjoy.
Well, hi guys, and welcome to the ICQ Podcast News Roundtable for episode 489. 489, we're 11 away from the 500, but looking good. Tonight I'm joined by Mr. Chris Howell, M0TCH. Hi Chris.
Hi Martin, 489. It's getting close, isn't it? 411 episodes. It feels like it's real now. We're going to hit the 500, and I think, well, I'll let somebody else give the date, but I think it's going to be around about Christmas time. So that's a nice time to have our big milestone episode.
Yeah, I think it brought it into the Christmas time because we did an extra one at WRTC, so that helped along the way. We've also got Mr. Martin Rothwell, M0SGL. Hi, Martin.
Hello. I still think we've only just passed 400. I mean, that must have been, 2 years ago, whatever. Jeez. But yeah, it's crazy how quickly time flies. Good evening.
Well, I know I only committed to 10 with Colin, and you guys said if I ever got 10 right, I could leave, but, you know. But
when you get 10 of them right, then you can leave. Until then, you keep trying, mate.
I'll keep trying. I try all the time, yeah. Okay. Moving to the side of the pond, we have Mr. Frank Howell, K4FMH. Hi, Frank.
Hey, Martin. Hey, everybody. And I guess I might be that other guy that M0TCH mentioned. If we go on target, I want to thank you all for celebrating my birthday with our 500th episode. I mean, a beer for each of you from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, sounds good to me, Frank. Sounds good to me. And last but not least, he's back by popular demand, is Leslie Butterfields, D0CIB. Hi, Leslie.
Good evening, all. Good evening, Martin. Great to be back on again.
Yeah, great to have you as always. Right, news stories today. A bit strange because it's the middle of the summer, people are on holiday, and we were just trying to find you some interesting stuff that you may not have come across. So, don't feel too upset, but we try and do things that other podcasts sometimes don't do as well. So our first news story talks about HAMgpt launches as a personal AI co-pilot version of AI. So I've talked about this many times. I did a feature on AI in amateur radio, but it's getting even more coverage now. Chris, do you want to go first on this one?
Certainly can, yeah. So AI, there's obviously been an explosion now about this artificial intelligence software, and there's the sort of the general ones like your Copilots, your ChatGPTs, your Claudes, your Geminis, your Groks. There's a whole bunch of ones out there, kind of general use. But there's also quite a few now that are emerging that have a very specific purpose. You can get ones to do with law, medicine. There's lots of, if you work in a particular industry, there'll probably be an AI solution for your industry that's tuned and kind of designed specifically for what you do. And this essentially is one that someone's come up with for amateur radio. And I've had a little play with it while we were chatting earlier. It looks pretty interesting. You can ask it, you may ask one of the general ones a question about amateur radio. It may not know the answer. It may get confused. You ask this one a specific question about, you might ask it, which bands are open in the UK right now, or what radio net's happening right now, or some specific radio question, and it will probably have a better answer. Although saying that, I did ask it earlier if it had heard about the ICQPodcast and who the presenters were, and it suggested that Martin Lynch, M1MRB, was one of the presenters, which it's obviously got wrong. So Martin, if you don't know, Martin Lynch is a radio dealer in the UK. So we've always got to take AI with a pinch of salt. But it looks interesting. I think you can ask it 5. It's a free tier. We can ask it 5 questions a day. And I think you're going to pay a little bit more. So if you want to ask it more questions than that, but it's pretty low price. So yeah, it looks like it might be interesting. It might be worth playing with. We'll see how successful it is, I suppose, in terms of adoption. Yeah.
Well, just to clarify this, I used to work for Martin Lynch for a few months, and I got on very well with Martin. So the fact it's got my call sign and his name, probably a little bit of an excuse for having worked for Martin. But if you talk to Martin, he'll tell you he's the better looking one of the two of us and slightly younger. So
well, we've interviewed Martin a few times, to be fair. Last time I think was when we were at Newark at the last National Land Fest. So yeah, he's a good guy. But it's not you, Martin, it's somebody else. That's the point.
Yeah, no problems. Well, as I say, I get on very well with Mr. Lynch, so there's never a problem. Right. Martin, what's your thoughts on this one?
See, I'm in two minds about all this. There's a lot of AI. There's a lot of AI content out there, and it scares me. It's a nice idea. I clicked on it, but it did fail at the very, very first hurdle for me. Literally, the front screen was an epic no from me. You need to create an account. No, stop doing this. Everybody wants you to create accounts, passwords, or log in with Google, log in with Facebook. No, there's no excuse for this. Stop trying to collate people's data. It's wrong. You can use ChatGPT, Gemini, Microsoft's one, whatever it's called. They could all be used without an account. Yes, you can get advanced features if you sign in, but in reality, you don't need it. I do wonder initially how it differs from like normal AI, like any of the aforementioned or any others. What else it can specifically do. There are a couple of example questions there, like what bands are open today. If you just rephrase that and put that into ChatGPT, it came up and pretty much told with the information. If you like what amateur radio bands are open today, it came up. The other thing I would ask, again, it's the problem that you do have with the AIs, is how accurate is it? Typically, these things just interrogate other people's websites to compile the info, and it's reliant on correct information in the first place. Sometimes you could ask it something, and if someone's website is wrong, it will put it up there. So any information it does give you, obviously take it with a piece of salt. But I always say there's a time and a place for AI. Interrogating an instruction manual, so how do I program a repeater into this handheld, is easier to ask ChatGPT or whoever, because it will come back and give you step-by-step points, rather than, go download the manual for this radio, learn how to do that. What is the prompt for this? What menu do I need to go into? So there is a time and a place, but I haven't played with it because I refuse to set up accounts for these things.
Well, I thought I was the only grumpy in this group. Hi, and I officially 315, mate. Anyway, moving on. Leslie, you not so sure about AI as well, are you?
Well, if you'd asked me a couple of years ago, I knew very, very little about it. So what I did is I knew my knowledge there was next to nothing. So I took an introductory course down in a place called City Lit, which is London. And I went down there and took the course, and it gave me an introduction to what it could do. It actually blew my mind. You just sort of staggered at what it can do. Now, I use it for things like documents. How does a document come across? And it's a bit like a second assistant to guide me to get the balance right in the document, because I tend to be very curt when I'm writing things, so it knocks off the edges, if that makes sense. I've also used it for research, historical research, and a little bit of radio amateur stuff, and looking for what's occurring with particular companies. You have to be mindful. For example, if I looked at and I said, I'm looking at RF safety, these are the parameters, and I need a spreadsheet equation to look at taking into account all these parameters. It will do it, and do it very, very quickly. But you've got to understand, whether it's a spreadsheet or whatever the answers are, you've got to understand what the answer is. The answer correct? Does it make sense with my own knowledge? Has it produced something I don't know? So you can't take it 100%, but it's an extremely useful tool. I remember in the 80s when I was working in a factory, we had a factory of about 112 people, and we got some machines in, and we got some word processing machines in, and that factory went down to 6 people. I think this is probably the start of something similar, where a lot of repetitive jobs that need to be done to a high accuracy, this is where AI can do those jobs very, very quickly. The repetitive, how can I put it? So it's looking at medical results, screening and that type of thing. It can do it very, very quickly. And I'm not a medical person, but there we go. I'm sure others will. So I think it's a beginning of something big. Is it 100% in my view? Not there yet, but is it very useful? Well, it's a very useful tool to me personally. So that's my own something. So over to you, Martin.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And in fairness, if you only give it 2 words, you're going to not get very much. You need
correct.
To write.
The more you. I mean, another example on that. If I say, how do I fit a top band antenna into a garden the size of a postage stamp, you're only going to get a generalist, the general principles. The more specific you can be, the better your answer is going to be. So you have to be very careful about the question you give it, and that will depend upon the answer will depend on how good your input is.
Certainly will. I know people that are fairly close to me that ask questions, but they know what they mean, but they don't ask the right question.
Yes, exactly.
And not going for Frank. Have we left you anything to say on this one? I mean, it's new. It's probably going to help us somewhere along the line, I'd have thought.
Yes. Listeners may be aware, I've commented, I go back with whatever is called artificial intelligence back to writing declarative statements in the language Prolog. that morphed into something called Expert Systems. And except for, as Leslie eloquently articulated, except for some specific focused task, the big problem with Expert Systems is we humans can't get everything out of our head that we use to actually make a decision. So I go back a bit, and I use AI today, Claude, do a bit with that, and use some others with ChatGPT. So I took ChatGPT and asked it, what is HAMgpt? And here's what it said. It's an AI assistant specifically built for amateur radio operators. We wouldn't disagree with that. It functions as a digital Elmer. It takes as inputs your specific license class, which kind of articulates what frequencies and what power, your regulations will allow you to operate on, your station equipment, including your antennas. So you don't have a 2-meter rig or 2-meter antenna, it's probably not going to recommend you get on 2 meters, for example. Then it takes live band conditions to suggest what you can do with your radio. Now, many of us already do this, and we can get input from this or recommendations, but what if we've got our handy-dandy 2-meter net on Sunday evening, such as one that I check into? It may be oblivious to that unless we give it more information. So it may say 20 meters is killing it to Europe, but I've got a net I got to work on. So I kind of have to have what we might call agency, that I'm in charge of thinking about what I want to do. To quickly summarize, it gives station-specific recommendations, live propagation and band activity, practical activities such as nearby repeaters, what satellites are passing over, and locate POTA activations. Here's where I think it might be useful for some hams. It can read diagnostic images created from nano VNA files such as S1P or touchstone file, and give an annotated graphic of a sweep of an antenna. Now, I'm a little sensitive to this because I gave a talk last week to the Jackson Metro Amateur Radio Club on the very basics of antenna analyzers, SWR versus impedance. And so I just gave a talk and had some questions that I would have loved to have said, take HAMgpt and do a sweep and feed that in there. So I agree with the rest of the commentators. It's a Swiss Army knife of a lot of stuff it can do. I will tell you what impresses me. It's written by the same ham that has produced DXlook.com. That is one of the 5 tabs that I keep open on my desktop to look at band conditions. And it's pretty good. It tells me maximum usable frequency and so on and so on and so on there. So when I see this was created by this same ham, I go, okay, then it might be pretty good. Both, and I got a financial request today from the ham for DX Look. They're only 44% of the monthly expenses being based on donations. And we on the podcast say we do a value for value. If what we're nattering about is useful to you, then turn that into a value and donate. So I'm far from against those kinds of things. But to be really useful, you probably will need to donate to it. I agree with the other presenters. Is it any good right now? Maybe for some. It's certainly worth exploring, but it largely does what most of us already do. It just does some of it in an automated fashion, but then you're going to have to second guess it. So why not do it in the first place? I'm of two minds, like Martin Rothwell is. Martin.
Yeah, well, this is probably version 1. And if the gentleman continues, obviously it'll get better with time. And unfortunately, I think that AI is with us. We're not going to get away from it. As I said a few months back, there are AI bots out there that are actually running stations that you can call into, and they'll give you your 5 and 9 report and repeat your call sign and send you off. And you haven't worked anybody, you've just worked a bot. But hey hum, that's the way the world's going. Let's move to our next news story. This is not overly a news story. I mean, I found it was interesting and I thought, let's put this in. It talks about satellite PTT robust communications for remote operation. Now, this was an article I found on the Icom UK website, and they talk about using radios with PTT to talk to satellites, exactly the same sort of way we would talk to, say, a repeater, but because the satellite's much, much higher up and, it's got a greater coverage and it's much, much quicker than messing around with mobile phones. So I thought this was probably a better idea. Martin, what's your thoughts on this one?
Do you know what? I like this idea because it's obviously it's a fairly no-brainer. We know that radios are quicker. In an emergency situation, whatever you're trying to do, it is easier to press a PTT button and ask for help or pass a message than it is to make a phone call, wait for it to connect, wait for the person to answer the phone at the other end. Equally, it's multicast. So it can go to many people. That's the reason that the police, emergency services and things still use walkie-talkies. It's the reason that security guards still use walkie-talkies. Because when you press that button and say, I need help, you don't want to have to wait. Those seconds, those split seconds can be crucial. So Icom came out with this POC system a while ago. We've seen that demoed. It's, we thought it was a similar concept to like Zello. It's a lot more advanced than Zello, I should say that. And it's a really nice looking system, but this was the obvious sort of step up from it. It runs on the Iridium network. It's been around for a while, we believe. But it gives you, I think they quote, it gives you full, or at least for the best part, full global coverage. Now, is that going to be used for a lot of amateur radio people? Possibly not, because obviously there is a charge with it. Satellite telephone networks are not exactly cheap. I don't know what the pricing is on this. Equally, the radios probably aren't cheap. But I do believe that you can interface them with existing VHF, UHF radios, digital analog, your POC systems as well if you need to. I'm sure that Icom can help you with that. But I can see it being useful for people like on, if they're trekking like the North Pole or something like that, and they need comms, or disaster zones where there is physically no infrastructure that you need to get crew out to for whatever reason. I can see this being a really, really a nice tool. So it's definitely worth having a look at if that's something that you might benefit from.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting one. Okay, it's not necessarily new, but I wondered how many amateurs knew this sort of thing actually existed, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't. Frank, what's your thoughts on this one?
It's a very interesting project. I worked with our state hospital association and trained some technicians and got some repeaters on hospitals and things like that. And I know you guys over there work with at least one hospital. And Chris, you probably work with a number in your day job. Here in Mississippi, they up and decided, well, somebody went to a conference and they said, we're just going to go sat phone. So they said, we don't need you hams anymore. I think within a year, the sat phone company that they went with went out of business. So amateur radio is kind of always here. One thing this may do, if you scale this out to some logical conclusion, that it will reduce the immediate need for amateur radio operators in many rescue situations. Will that do away with our need for amateur radio in public service? Absolutely not. And one of the presenters brought this up, and I think Martin Rothwell may have. Here in Mississippi, like many states, the state governments developed a system that goes statewide, and then it got parceled out to local fire departments and all this. And it's called MISWIN, Mississippi WIN, who's some sort of wireless integrated network, I think. The local PD, police departments and fire departments and sheriff's offices often, cannot afford the per handset charge. it's too expensive for them. And number two, when they've done tests, it gets overloaded. I think Motorola has been a company that's oversold what their capabilities were. So coming back to this SAT PTT over a SAT phone, it's an intriguing thing. Imagine you're a police officer and taking a cell phone and having to dial 911. You might get into them quickly, you might not. So police officers often have that PTT capability to their dispatch at least, and they're often tracked with their handset. What will this one cost on a per handset charge to an individual user? I don't know. I think that's a big risk. Number two, can it actually handle the load if it were to be successful? I'm not sure. And I'll throw in one more comment. I don't know if this is something that Icom Land Mobile Radio and our friend Ray Novak, who's now over that, as well as amateur radio, I don't know if that's a product through his outfit or not. Icom continues to do innovating things. So I'm very unsure about what this will do. And if it is successful, it will take a little bit of relief off of us hams, Martin.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more of use in emergency situations. And as you say, will it negate the need for hams to help in emergencies? No. But any extra tools you have obviously going to make it much more easy to do these things. And, if you've got more people on the ground, effectively the satellite just becomes a flying repeater. So I think that's a good one. Leslie, have you got any thoughts on this one?
Well, I was looking at this, and it's correct me if I'm wrong on this. It's just the impression I get that it appears to me to be more of for commercial users because of the cost. Yes, the skill, and I'm trying to find the right words here, that the skill of the operator is less because they don't need to know about propagation. They don't need to know about the topography and all this stuff. It's literally, you would communicate, just press a button and it's to the satellite and back. Like I say, it comes across to me as more of a commercial piece of kit where one wouldn't really worry about the costs as such. It's like, we need this, go and get it. And it's let's say imperative that those comms must work. That's how it came across to me. I see it being used, yes, definitely. And I can think of situations where I've advised people and HF or VHF wouldn't be suitable. So this is another tool in the box. Over to you, Martin.
Yeah, you're right. I think this is commercial, not amateur. It's an interesting one that us amateurs know about it. Think about another way, though. You can go into an emergency area and you haven't got to set up repeaters and relay stations and all sorts of bits.
You don't need all that. You don't need all that knowledge.
No, and you don't need knowledge. You just need your radio set on a frequency. You key up and you talk.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, it's a very good thing from a safety point of view, I would suggest. Chris, what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think it's been said. I think it is very much a commercial solution. I can imagine it's actually quite, I can definitely see some use cases for this. The article talks about, if there's an issue with the grid, extreme weather or cyber attacks, or, it's got that resilience to allow people to communicate. Iridium, which is the satellite system they're using, is global. In fact, I was looking earlier, where's it gone? I think there are 66 different satellites up that cover the whole planet on the Iridium network. So very much full coverage in low Earth orbit. One thing I did think about on this one, so this is a nice solution. It's a single, I think they sell both a handheld and a mobile unit with this. So whether it's, depending on, I guess, on the requirements, you've either got a handheld radio, a bit like we've got handy talkies, or they've got a, which I guess you can take it with you wherever you are, and is you can recharge it, etc. And you've also got a mobile rig that goes into, say, a vehicle. Now, I was thinking that's a nice kind of black box solution. All you got to do is switch it on, I guess it takes a little bit of time to go and acquire satellites, I'm not really sure. And then you're on the air and you can communicate with whoever else you need to communicate with through this system. But there are other ways to do this. For example, our friend Mr. Musk and his Starlink satellite system, there's nothing stopping an amateur from, or even someone that wasn't an amateur that was licensed appropriately to use something like Starlink to get satellite coverage. And I think that covers, I'm not sure, I think that covers most of the Earth, but I could be wrong. That gives you an internet connection. You could then use whatever network you like. You could use DMR. You could have a little hotspot like we use for amateur radio and use your DMR radio, and you're on the air then. So, but of course, that's multiple boxes, not a single black box solution. So there are other ways to do this. I haven't looked at the pricing for this. I imagine it's pretty expensive. I think someone was saying both for the kit and also for the I guess is an ongoing cost for the access to the network as well. But certainly, I can imagine there are some use cases where this could be very useful. If you were an airline or if you were a shipping company and you wanted a backup system in case your radios went down, or you were doing some kind of expedition in some remote location, or even if you're just going out and you can't always get cell coverage, because often even in the UK, if you're out in the countryside, you often can't get a signal. This could provide you a backup, and this could be quite useful. So there are definitely some good use cases for this. I guess the downside with it not being a phone, if I get a sat phone, I could phone anybody that's got a phone on the planet and talk to them. Whereas I imagine if I want to talk to somebody else on this system, they'd also have to have an equivalent piece of kit at their end. So I guess it requires a bit more organisation maybe. But yeah, very useful to know about, useful to have in your kit bag of things if you need to find a solution to a particular problem. This might be it.
Yeah, well, as I say, I think summing it up, it's a commercial system, not an amateur system. It's something that can be deployed very quickly because the satellites are up there anyway, circling the Earth. If you go into an emergency situation where maybe the infrastructure has been devastated or you're out in the wilds of nowhere, it's a straight in, your communications are up and working straight away. And for emergency workers, there's no training on how to use a radio. So the concept's good. Icom's made us aware of it. There may very well be other people that do a similar system, but I thought it was just worth mentioning this as for just give us a bit of information on what else is happening in the radio world. Right, moving to our next news story. Scientists are building a massive deep synopsis array in the Nevada desert. Now, this is going to be a massive radio telescope. I'm not familiar with your geography in the States, Frank, but if they're putting it in the desert, then there's going to be quite a few of these, I believe. So what do you think, Frank?
Well, it's out in a state in the U.S. that's probably most famous for the gambling city and resort of Las Vegas. But Las Vegas is really only one part of Nevada. And there is a lot of land in the Southwest and West in general that's owned by the government. Now, I don't know if the land that this is specifically designed for is owned by government or not, but it will be an area of 12 by 10 miles or about 20 by 16 kilometers. And it is an array of radio telescopes, dishes, we can probably think of them. It's recently passed a final design review, which means that this looks like it can be built. And California Institute of Technology, or Caltech as it's commonly called, they have the lead on the project of the Deep Synoptic Array, DSA. Now, from reading this, and of course, this is outside of my field of science, but from dealing with Scott McIntosh and sitting there on the log listening and learning, one of the problems that we have is how accurate certain measurements are. And we can liken this to how accurate is our multimeter, how accurate is our spectrum analyzer. And if we were to try to tune duplexers for a repeater, we want to enhance one bandwidth and suppress another, right? Well, maybe the split in a repeater, our instrument doesn't have what we call the dynamic range to really capture that. Listeners might be more familiar with that than the era that amateur, or not amateur, but radio astronomers have in this area of science. And so it's sort of often the case for the rank and file pedestrian to say, well, just how accurate do you need it? Well, to make better science, you need it to be as accurate as the technology will allow. And that's what this is about, to give us the most accurate radio telescope that we've ever had to better understand fast radio bursts, pulsars, black holes, and other transient phenomena. Now, in our preview, I made the comment to the podcast team members that my reaction to this is that we hams may not directly benefit from the first layer of science that the DSA may produce. But secondarily, the more we know about stars, their behavior, and what astronomers sometimes call the solar dynamo of our star, the more we'll learn about how our star, the sun, affects our propagation. So a decade down the road or so, we may begin to benefit from some of this in amateur radio directly. That's a hope, at least, Martin.
Yeah, it's something new that's happening, and in fairness, 10 by 12 miles, that's a big area. And I was just trying to think of the name of the satellite dish that broke up a few years ago. Maybe this will replace it.
You mean Arecibo in Puerto Rico?
The one. Yeah, that's the one. Maybe this will replace it.
Well, there's another one in, I believe, Arizona, if I've got that right, but it's one dish, and there's some really good work done there. But this, as you said the word, massive, it will be the biggest and most accurate one we've ever had.
Yeah, certainly. Leslie, you got any thoughts on this one?
Oh, well, I've just been listening with interest. Let me just have a look. There's something there. I think we all sort of say how this works. I mean, if you got a small mirror, let's say 6 meters diameter, and you had a railway line, and you put that and you run it along, let's say, a mile down the road, you're going to have an effective area between those two dishes of a lot more than 6 meters. However, what they've done here is they've got 1,650 radio dishes. So, like Frank was saying, it's super accurate, and it's, in terms of its effective use, that's going to be massive. You would not build one big dish. That's impractical. So this is why they're doing it the way they do it. Who knows what the results are going to be, and who knows what the understanding of the sun and the solar system. This is going to open up a book that, to be honest, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen, but somebody's got to do the research, and this is what it's all about. Over to you, Martin.
Yeah, it's certainly research and a lot of dishes, so that'll be good. Chris, what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, very interesting. I know that the Arecibo dish there were some issues. I think we reported a year or so ago that there was some, unfortunately went off the air, and that was doing a lot of this sort of thing. So yeah, this deep synoptic array is great. It's in the US, as I think Leslie was saying. It's a huge array of these dishes. So it seems to be a common thing now. Rather than building one big thing, so scaling up, it's this kind of scaling out idea of building lots and lots of small things. A bit like I mentioned earlier, Starlink. There are thousands of these satellites up in space that are acting as little mini internet repeaters, I suppose. This is a similar sort of thing. If one of them breaks, well, you go and fix that one, but the whole thing carries on working. And it's a way of, I guess you can, if in the future they wanted to add even more capacity, they could add even more dishes. So it seems to be the way things are going. I think it says here that it's spread out over an area of 10 by 12 miles, so quite a big area. And it does. It's it's going to be very, very useful, I think, for scientists to understand a bit more about, I guess, deep space. So it's going to be really, really interesting. I noticed it's been funded by, and I got to find the right page now. I forgot the guy's name, but basically it's been funded by one of the founders or one of the ex-CEOs of Google. So I don't know if they're partially funding it or fully funding it, but I think it's part of the legacy is to sort of fund this sort of thing. So actually, it's going to be. I imagine it's going to be pretty expensive to do, but this is something that's going to be around for a long time and hopefully greatly improve our knowledge of what's going on out there in space. So very interesting one. What we should look out for. I don't know when it's happening. I think it's happening quite soon, and it should be quite exciting. So hopefully we'll learn a lot more about what's happening up there in space. It says it's just passed its final design review, so it should now. It clears the way for construction. Which will be the world's most sensitive radio telescope. So it should be a very, very useful resource for the world to learn about what's out there.
I think it will be there, Chris, no problems. Martin, what's your thoughts on radio astronomy?
The cheeky side of me just says, this is a little bit excessive for Trump's CB radio, but no, I'm only kidding. The Nevada desert does seem to attract interesting things like this, doesn't it? There's certain things that are buried deep in the Nevada desert that may or may not be there. It just seems to attract things like this. Yeah, I wonder I'd like to see some specs on this compared to, some of the other big radio telescopes of GAIN and things like that, what this will receive by comparison to others. But one thing that did make me laugh, just looking on their website, there's a photo here of a Jonas Flygare, a research engineer who worked on the DSA project. He's photographed holding a component from one of these things, and I love the fact that this is basically the equivalent of the LMB or something that sits on the end of the dish. It's a device that converts the electromagnetic waves into electrical signals. The device is made in part of two concentric cake pans designed for the project by the baking pan company Fat Daddios.
I missed that. That's brilliant. I don't know how I missed that, but that's brilliant. Fat Daddios.
Martin, it may be where ET can go to actually phone home.
But this is ET made a thing that could call home with a circular saw blade and a speak and spell. You can't make this stuff up, can you? But I like that is brilliant. I know, we talk about amateurs we bodge things together, we make things out of what we've got. This guy's making it out of cake tins.
And in fact, I've just Googled Fat Daddios, and they do a very large range of bakeware and cakeware and all the rest of it. So they get the bang for the best. Dishes. And intergalactic satellite dishes, yes. Deep space research.
Fun for the CV, isn't it?
Well, I'd be dying to find out if Walmart was allowed to bid on a contract, to supply the cake pan.
We would like to supply the flour and the eggs. So I tell you what, there's a hell of a big cake if you bake there. Mind you, the Nevada desert, that's hot, isn't it? You can probably bake out there in the sun anywhere, easy. There's a money-making, money-saving thing for you.
Well, in fairness, yeah, interesting you picked that one up, Martin. And as I say, our listeners enjoy us having a bit of fun and sometimes going off at a tangent. And I think we really did there. So, yeah.
Hey, whoa, that is on their own news story. This is on the Caltech website. It's a photo of the bloke. I didn't make that up.
Hang on, it's not April the 1st, is it?
No.
But Martin, to quote you, in fairness, this company also makes commercial products, and I'm sure that it was their commercial division that would be supplying these pans.
Yeah. Right, next news story. Once again, another controversial one. I put it in because it's to do with the FCC, and we had some dislikes amongst us and trying to understand why. Frank, I'm going to let you go first because it's an American story. But the FCC's okayed the launch of mirror satellites to reflect the sun. Ah, dear. Over to you, Frank.
The first question would be, why does the FCC do this? And the FCC wound up inheriting certain governmental responsibilities for things up in the air as part of our connection to ITU. So That's satellites have to pass muster with the FCC. And when I first read this, I thought, to quote my friend Leslie, I don't get it. And so as I read through it, what they're going to do is have a satellite that will have a large mirror that they can articulate that mirror. That is, they can turn it and focus it and put things together and do beams and do all this stuff. And the plan is that they will put up, in about 9 years, up to 50,000 such orbital mirrors. And the company that would do this is called Reflect Orbital. That's kind of a nice little name. If you look at their website, they make a cogent argument. They'll be 5 kilometers and up. They will have a very localized beam focus. You can configure the intensity. You can dim it. You can turn it on demand if you're a customer. They have an app. They have an app for it. And they have uniform, even coverage. They can relocate the spot, and there's nothing you do on the ground. Now, we're having a bit of giggle here a moment ago with the other one, and we can definitely giggle on this. And we did in our rehearsal, but the argument for this is that during the evening time, all the solar farms that are there, well, they don't get a whole lot of light, right? So you can change the angle of the sun so that it hits the solar farm. Well, if you've got a big problem of some sort of rescue, some sort of natural disaster, and you're trying to get people out of the ground, out of the rubble of a building, you can shine that light on it. Because one of the first things you see are these big halogen lights and things. If you've got a mining operation, to use their example, you can turn the light on for them. And in agriculture, which I've been very, very involved earlier with remote sensing, that you can tailor cycles and so on and so on. And they make a cogent argument, and it's worth looking at. My first reaction, though, is that, okay, they've approved this. Well, gosh, was there some sort of panel or set of panels that would have people with expertise in different areas to say, what impact would this have? We usually have what's called an impact assessment requirement. Well, under the current administration in the U.S., a lot of those things have just sort of been at best a wink and a nod, or just you have an exception to this. So I'm not really sure what went on there. And to be fair, this is a $1.2 million Small Business Innovation Research Grant, SBIR, through the Air Force. Now, it's a grant program I'm very familiar with, been involved in some, reviewed some from the federal side. And so this is kind of a small potatoes project. So if they're successful, they launch one of these things, they get it up in the air. And I got to admit, $1.2 million to design and launch a satellite is not a lot of money for that. It goes for big bucks. Then they're going to show how good it's going to work. I'll end with this little giggle. We've all heard about people getting swatted. There, you call the 911 system in the U.S. and say, hey, I think Frank Howell's up to something nefarious. You better send the SWAT team. So they come knock down my front door and go, oops, there's nothing to be seen here. Just imagine if you could actually turn the light on someone that you don't like and it lights up their neighborhood. Martin, I'll apologize for the last giggle, but it does sort of lend itself to a changing world in terms of technology. But that's my take on this particular project. They'll have to make their way after they get one launched and show that it works and show that there's a cost effectiveness, and we may or may not see all those satellites up there.
Well, in some ways, I hope there won't be that many satellites up there, but in for an emergency system, if, you got people digging members of the public out of rubble as a building's crashed or an earthquake or something like that, and you could shine a light, like a big searchlight from the sky, great idea. But I'm still not 100% sure like yourself, and I'm thinking, you could, if you were upset with a particular country, disrupt the country by putting them in permanent daylight and doing sleep deprivation. So,
and in fairness, they do say in approved areas, so I'm taking a little bit of literary license with that, but that's a concern that they should address.
Yeah. So I understand. Martin, what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, initially I say why. It's the FCC are in America. What are they trying to light up? I know they say they're trying to light up solar panels. As other people say, can they steer the light? This to me is like something out of science fiction, and weirdly a TV show that I watched back in the 90s where they had a satellite that was effectively I forget what they called it. It was maybe Stargate or something like that. But it was essentially they could use it as a weapon. In the same way you could, like with a magnifying glass, you can focus it on the ground, and like, this does not sound as innocent as it possibly could. And now, I'd be clear, it may well be very, very innocent. It may just be the way that I'm reading this story. But, I don't understand. I don't understand why the FCC are interfering with this. It's not radio. It's, in my head, that's out of their remit. As people have said, you can shine a torch through the neighbour's window. I'd be honest with you, I don't agree with this. I don't personally think it's something that should be done. I think they should be a lot more transparent about what they want it for. And I don't think it's for the FCC to decide. I think the FCC have overstepped their remit, especially if, where are they going to, are they going to be geostationary? Are they going to be moving? I don't know. But watch this space, I guess.
Yeah, well, I'm guessing the FCC are involved because you're going to have to monitor these satellites, you're going to have to control them, and you're going to have radio frequencies there, Martin. So that might be the main reason FCC are involved. Chris, what's your thoughts on this one?
I think most of it's been said, I can sort of see the benefits. So I can also see potentially some unknown unknowns. We don't know what this impact could have on. I suppose I'm thinking about, is this messing with nature? Is lighting up a 3 mile, area of the planet that should be in darkness a good idea? Is it going to affect wildlife? Is it going to affect plants? Is it going, what's it going to do to nature? Is this being fully thought through? And likewise, I think I'm also a bit suspicious about what might it be used for that may not be currently being publicised. So could it be used for harm? Could it be used as some sort of defensive weapon? Could we light up a foreign country that we don't like because, they've done something, I don't know, we're trying to apply pressure or something politically? That sort of thing to me sounds a little bit like it's not a good idea. So I kind of get the idea you could light up solar panels, but, that's a lot of solar panels to 3 miles square. So what else is it going to affect? That's kind of what worries me. So I'm probably not fully in agreement with this idea. And also, I think as Martin Butler was saying, the FCC is the regulator in the US, but this could be pointing, I'm guessing anywhere in the world. So how is that regulated? Is this going to allow whoever's running this system to be able to light up the sky from, anywhere on the planet, even not in the US? Don't really know, but it does make me a little bit nervous as to what this could be used for, and there may be future things people think up and say, we could do that. Or what if somebody hacked into this system and actually was able to light up parts of the world, without, that there shouldn't be, that sort of thing. So that's kind of, I guess I've got some cautious concerns about this, and would like to know a lot more about it before. If I was going to approve it, I want to know a lot more about what this could be used for and how it's going to work before I'm giving it the green light.
Oh yes, oh yeah. We as I say, we don't know. We only got the news story, and being a quiet period for news stories, I thought it was worth discussing. Leslie, last words on this one?
Well, Frank was actually quite correct. I did say why I don't get it, and that was my honest reaction. I don't understand why they're doing it. No, I do not. I do understand that people try, and governments and companies try projects, and the vast majority end up in the dustbin. That's not a problem because you end up the projects that sort of go through that process, you end up with the piece of gold in your hand with whatever you're trying to achieve. But I don't get this from day one. Obviously, I'm missing something. If somebody can tell me what I'm missing, because I just don't understand it at all. But hey, that's just my take, and that's me. Over to you.
Yeah, it is a bit of a strange one, Leslie. Don't beat yourself up on that one. But yeah, just a bit of interest. Last one. Yes, it does involve amateur radio, guys. For those of you who've been thinking, amateur radio. Yeah, this one does. There's a new app out that'll run on your PC or your phone, a new APRS app. I'm going to pass it to Chris first because Chris and I have played with APRS on and off for years. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's an app and a website. I've looked at the website. It looks pretty new, pretty modern. There are other websites out there. So I've used for many years aprs.fi, which is a perfectly good site. This looks a little bit newer, a little bit more modern. It's a different interface, I suppose. It's providing the same sort of information as the other ones, but it looks quite nice. It's quite responsive. So I like it. Also, I noticed when I was playing with it earlier that there was a very nice page on there that's got lots of useful documentation. There's kind of an APRS guides page, and it's got all kinds of useful information. For those that don't know what APRS is, it is essentially a system for sending your location. I think you can also use it as well for sending other information like messages and weather data and that sort of thing. But I think originally it was designed really for tracking. It stands for the automatic. Well, I think I've heard two names for it. I think the official name is Automatic Packet Reporting System. I think I've also heard it mentioned as an automatic position reporting system, but I think packet is correct. I think it's based on packet radio, and I think the most use it's had has been around sending positional information from GPS coordinates. So it's been around for a few years. I think from probably from the late 80s. Bob Bruninger, WB8 APR, who sadly passed away. He was the guy that put it together. So it's interesting, and it's an interesting technology. Can be quite useful. But this is quite a nice, fresh, modern website you can use to go and track and see, and use this system. So back to you, Martin.
Yeah, well, us amateurs do use it. This is just a side story, just to put a smile on your face. I remember a few years ago, an ex-club member now of our club had it set up in his car when I was tracking him on the motorway. The UK speed limit on motorways is 70 mile an hour. I tracked him down the M3 and he was broadcasting on APRS doing 110 most of the way, 40 miles over the speed limit.
And that's the reason his name must be not mentioned on this podcast.
Yeah, I'm not mentioning his name, and it was years ago.
And it wasn't me, I'll point out.
Oh, no, it wasn't you. Yeah, it's one of the guys who's no longer a club member. But, it's a very, very good piece of software, but you've got to use it sensibly. And if you are using it and you do silly things, you're broadcasting the world that you're doing silly things. Martin, what's your thoughts?
Do you know, I like APRS. I do play with it every now and again. My radio in the car has it available, but I don't always, it's not something I regularly need to use for. But if I'm driving somewhere that I haven't been before, I might put APRS on to have a look at the map and see whereabouts I drove, just out of interest. But it's not quite as granular as, say, Google Maps and Google Tracking is. It's where it transmits the data, and if you're away from an iGate that can actually hear you, and you're using your radio rather than a phone, you can have a big jump and a big missing part of data. But it's interesting to see where you can be heard on it and what is where your station is going. But yeah, this website aprs.world. At first, I thought, well, what's wrong with aprs.fi? it just looks a bit more modern. It's a little bit more user-friendly. There's a lot of additional features on the bottom, talking about how to send messages, join the scheduled club APRS rounds. There's information on how to set things up. There's an app. There's how to get on the air. And APRS Thursday, where they have a weekly on-air event, which is interesting. But the other thing which you can do with APRS, and I have done it in the past, I think Neil did it as well. We bounced APRS off the International Space Station in previous years. You can't always call into it, but occasionally they put an APRS node on it, and you can bounce into there. So I have done that. I've hit the International Space Station with APRS once, but it did repeat my signal. So but it looks a nice little website. It's definitely worth having a play with if you're interested in learning about APRS. It's a place to look at.
Yeah, as I say, it is something new, and people like things new. Frank, what's your thoughts on this one?
It's an interesting app. It certainly complements aprs.fi, the mothership, if you will. It is comparable, in my view, to another one that I use a lot, APRS Direct, which is an open source, I believe, set of software that people can implement, and several have. I like this particular tool because it implements several things that I enjoy using when I'm monitoring APRS. And that is, if you hover over a digipeater, it will show you the iGate to which it last delivered a packet. And sometimes if you're not getting through, for whatever reason, an iGate may have been taken down for maintenance or whatever, and your packet is going into a stall mode. Now, listeners who use APRS will realize that there's a programming feature for your APRS beacon that determines how many hops it's going to take. And that really depends on the density of digipeaters versus the iGates in your particular area. I use APRS beaconing quite a bit in public service work, sometimes just to keep up with where I am, but primarily public service work. Bob Berninga, who got his master's degree at Georgia Institute of Technology and who taught for years before he passed away at the Naval Academy, and his first foray into this was to develop just because he could, piece of software to track the football that was delivered by cadet from one institution to the other, depending upon who was handling the home football game. And yes, folks, I know the real football is what we just finished, but this is American college football. And so Bob was clearly a visionary. Since he passed away of cancer a few years ago, APRS is now managed by the APRS Foundation. And there's been some changes into the protocol, and there's some more innovation. I think we have more capabilities of passing messages and things. And Bob would say, I get angry when people call it the automatic position reporting. It's far more than just let alone a position, but it's packet, as one of the other presenters rightly said. So aprs.world is something the listener should check out. And it's in 11 languages that I read. Now, how cool is that? So maybe it'll get APRS into non-English speaking terrain and be very useful, Martin.
Yeah, I think it's a nice little app. I installed it on my phone and I had a look at it on the PC. It certainly went well. Leslie, I know you haven't played with APRS, but having heard what the guys have said, would you be interested to have a look at this?
I've been listening with interest. I've never played with it before because I've always been dragged away for other projects. But I'd like to get involved at one time.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing, and
yes,
yeah, and because it's a free app, you can put it on your phone. It's not going to cost you anything. APRS is interesting. I mean, I remember playing with it about 25 years ago when you had to get a map of the area where you were going to be so you could plot yourself on the map. And if you went out that area, it got horribly confused. But it's much better now, much more user-friendly than it was, say, 25 years ago. But there you go. Right, that concludes the news stories. Let's find out what the boys have been up to since the last time we spoke on the podcast. Frank, what have you been up to since we spoke?
Well, I've been on vacation, went down to Ocean Springs, Mississippi, a beautiful beach town on the south coast of Mississippi. I took some radio gear, but it rained a bit and was very, very hot, and I didn't really activate there. But I did scope out the public pier down at the beach for some future acts of activations. And for those listeners who know who Salty Walt Hudson is, then I will probably, next time I'm down, try to go down to the beach, set up a vertical antenna, and operate with my counterpoise in the salt water. Now, my rotator cuff rehab from my surgery on May 7th, I'm down to about 3 weeks from this recording date. They'll do a high contrast MRI to verify that the cow patch repair that they used is solidified and growing into the tendons based on the collagen in the regenitin cow patch. They make that from the Achilles heel of a cow. And I think I'm the 4th patient that this surgeon has performed this on, and it's gone magnificently well. So I've been doing that. And secondly, I gave a talk to the Jackson Metro Amateur Radio Club last week on basic concepts for antenna analyzers, SWR versus impedance. Many of our listeners could have given that talk themselves and probably know more than I do. But I find it, the questions that come up at club meetings often revolve around a focus exclusively on SWR in an antenna system versus the impedance. Buy a $50 nano VNA, figure out how to work it, where's the SWR and that sort of thing. So I focused on that, was committed to a one-page handout, wanted to keep it simple. I used a dipole on a tripod as a demo platform using my Rig Expert Stick Pro and Bluetooth connectivity. I like to do that because I like to tune the antenna or make final adjustments when it's up in the air at the wavelength that it's going to live at or should live at. So I gave that talk. I'll be giving that talk once again in September to the Vicksburg Amateur Radio Club. And I've continued to build antennas. The 20-meter ground plane that before my surgery I had been dealing with and trying to get the final radial figured out and whether to angle them or not. I found a new machined radial mount. It's angled from China at 45 degrees. We've been having temperatures up in the 90s. In fact, Ridgeland, Mississippi is under a heat distress warning today. When it gets a little cooler, I plan to get out and try to finalize that 20-meter ground plane, and I'll write that up and probably submit it somewhere for review. I'm also building another couple of antennas. I've gotten the bug to build a phased vertical beam starting with 40 meters. I've got a 33-foot fiberglass telescoping pole that I use for an antenna, but I was up in Starkville and visited Martin Jew at MFJ Enterprises last week and had lunch with him. And while I was there, I picked up another 33-foot fiberglass telescoping mast. And yes, MFJ is still open for business for MFJ and Vectronics products that they still have in stock. So they had plenty of those. And so I'll use two 33-foot verticals on 40 meters and then do two for 20 meters using 17-foot stainless steel whips. Now, the switching system, I can build all this, but time becomes a valuable commodity more than money sometimes as you get older. And so the switching system and phasing harness will likely come from a small ham shop, John Gendron, NJ4Z of Performance Arrays. His is a little cheaper. It's more generalizable than some other much more expensive ones on the market. And I'll use these with portable operations with my team. And I want to design them so I can run a little power to go with my Gator case. It'll put out 500 watts. Also doing a revamp of my 43-foot vertical, and I'll use a Palomar Electronics or Engineering 4-to-1 ununit RF choke. So doing some more portable vertical antenna work. Now, I'm like a lot of our listeners, I've got some very good portable QRP radios. I've been blessed to be able to have an Icom 705 and an Elecraft KX3 system, including their 100-watt amp with the auto tuner. Like a lot of hams, I really love tinkering with less expensive radios. I guess if I could have afforded it back when I was a teenager, I would have had a hot rod and would have worked on it to put glass pack mufflers on it and build a big engine. But alas, I couldn't afford it. But today, some of the rigs that I've got are QRP Labs, QMX, and QMX Plus radios, and even the little more higher brow Yaesu FT891. And in improving these rigs, Ray Novak of Icom US and I discussed this in an interview I conducted with him a couple of years ago for the podcast over in Huntsville. And we call this being a radio enhancer. Our friends over at Solder Smoke and elsewhere really talk about the virtues of building things from scratch. But many hams really couldn't design a radio from scratch. They might be able to build a kit, and some do a fine job with that. But by and large, the rank and file amateur is a radio enhancer, and I enjoy that. Now, a couple of things that I've acquired or will acquire for the QMX radios, and I'll refer listeners to the talk that Martin Butler gave on building QMX Plus, and it's not too difficult to build. And if you want to wait a few months, you can buy one. If you want to wait less, you can buy one secondhand. Quantum SDR has an independent SDR receiver that the CAT controls are consistent with the QMX and QMX Plus, and that's one way of doing that. A far less expensive way is the about $60 plus MStack Tab 5 computing device. It's a little 5-inch touchscreen display with an ESP32 board in it. Now, a ham, Stefan Love, OZ1LAV, has published some free firmware that you can flash to the MStack Tab 5, and it communicates with the QMX and QMX Plus through the USB-C port. Now, his firmware is on GitHub, and it's discussed in the QRP Labs groups.io listserv. And I've ordered one. It should be here in a couple of days, and I've been communicating with Stefan, and he's going to add, at my request, mouse control. Now, there's a touch screen. I just don't like using my fat fingers on the smaller 5-inch screens. I always hit the wrong thing. I don't really like using a stylus, but a mouse I know how to use. So he's going to add mouse control, hopefully through Bluetooth, to the UI for this. It has a brilliant waterfall display, in my opinion, and it gives the QMX radio series something that's not available natively, and at a cheaper price than the Quantum SDR. But in fairness, the Quantum SDR is a standalone SDR receiver that they have another device that will plug into it and make it a transceiver. So I want to be fair to them. I have a couple of their items. Now, for the popular FT891, the Cat Touch 7 USB is an external device. It does not give a waterfall, although you can implement a waterfall on the 891. In fact, that's one of the things Quantum SDR suggests. I've done it with an SDR Play, SDR, and a switch. What the Cat Touch 7 USB does is add a lot of usability to the deep dive. Now, what button do I push to narrow the bandwidth for FT8? Yaesu is infamous for that. Well, Chris Day at catmeters.com down in New Zealand, he's created a very handy 7-inch touchscreen that really enhances the FT891. So, Martin, that's mostly what I've been up to. Been doing a little back of the envelope planning of satellite communications. I ordered the Ant Runner Pro Azel rotator, and it'll take about a month to get here by boat from China, and we'll go from there. But it looks like I'll be supporting the hobby through enhancing both my QMX and QMX Plus and the Yaesu FT891 radio.
Well, it sounds like you've been very busy, Frank, and having fun, which is the important thing. And I know you enjoyed your vacation. So all in all, you've had great fun. Leslie, what have you been up to since last time you were on the podcast?
Not as much as Frank. Frank's very, very interesting. Anyway, I helped out at the Loughton Amateur Radio Club. They had a day at the local fete, Thaden Boys, so I helped out there. Got a call from the chairman, can you help me us out? I went, yeah, okay, what? So helped out there, which was all good, and it was a lovely sunny day, and met a nice lady from MasterChef. So got a good photo from that. You probably see it on the Facebook page. What else was there? I've been pottering about repairing bits and pieces. It just seems to be last 2 weeks have been a bit of a repair. You know, when you get a flood of things come along and say, Les, can you have a look at this? So some of it amateur radio, some of it other bits and pieces, but still keeping busy, Martin. Over to you.
Yeah, we do have to keep busy. We do have to keep busy. I know the fact on that one. Martin, what have you been up to since last time we spoke?
Not very much because, as I say, I've still got no antennas up at home or anything like that. I've put a few calls through on the repeater, had a couple of chats on the repeater. Talk group's been very quiet recently, at least at the times that I've been around, but I have put a few calls through. The only other thing that I was working on, actually yesterday as it was, I work in a studio at work sometimes, and we're trying to get some wireless links to our cameras and a control iPad running, and part of that we needed to install a wireless hotspot. So my colleague went online and bought a hotspot from a very well-known manufacturer, and we spent a long time trying to make this thing work as a standalone hotspot, which it's advertised to do. And whereas we can get it to transmit, you can see it coming up as a hidden network. You have to go onto their specific app, try and make it work. It just wanted us to either buy a controller or take out some kind of subscription on it. And it was a nightmare. We must have spent like 3 or 4 hours trying to get this thing working. So that's been sent back. We replaced it with a much, much cheaper TP-Link solution that just worked out of the box. We just plugged it in and that worked. But one of the things it did get me to do was have a look at the Wi-Fi networks in the area on a Wi-Fi laser. And oh my goodness, it is amazing how much stuff is out there, especially in central London. How this stuff works on the top of each other is beyond me. I understand if it's the same network and you can you've got controllers and stuff that are switching stuff around, but how they work with neighbouring networks and other things. And they're just like, yeah, just switch on another network. It's fine. It won't cause any problems. Well, I know if I'm trying to upload footage, if I walk to the other side of the studio, it goes up a lot faster than it does on at the desk in the studio, just because it seems to pick up another Wi-Fi point. But so been playing with Wi-Fi a bit. Other than that, I've not done anything radio related because, as I say, my aerials are all down at the moment for reasons that I can't put them back up at the moment. But I'm hoping that at some point in the next couple of months I'll be able to do so.
Yeah. Well, sounds good. Yeah, been up to a few things and keeping yourself busy. Chris, what have you been up to since the last time you were on the podcast?
Well, I suppose the big thing was being a volunteer at the WRTC event that we talked about on the special episode, I think went out in between this and the last episode. So, yeah, basically I was out up in the East Anglia part of the UK, so a bit of a way away from where I am, over 2 weekends. The first weekend I was helping to put up the stations, and I won't go through it all again, but essentially there are 50 stations put up, all identical, aerial, identical, everything really, even pointing in the areas, pointing in the same direction, made sure all that was very, very equal and fair, so everyone had the same chance of getting the same results essentially. I think I was involved in probably building about 4 or 5 over a couple of days, so it takes about 3 hours to put up a station. So that's the 11 meter mast which cranks up. There's the 3 band beam that goes on top of that with a rotator. There's also 2 dipoles, one for 40, one for 80 meters, that are also on the same mast. So all that's got to be put together and very carefully put together, and lots of health and safety. Everyone to wear hard hats and that sort of thing to be safe, and wear gloves, and it was all very well managed, very well planned out. And I know they'd done a rehearsal the year before to try out and test out some of those things to learn from that, and that all paid off because it was all pretty slick. So yeah, helped with that, and then the contest, and of course I wasn't doing it the weekend because I was working. So there were other volunteers that were there throughout the week that were then completing the build of all of those 50 stations across, I think, 3 different counties, I think, of England. In preparation for the 24-hour WRTC contest. And then, of course, once the contest was over, they were taken down again. So I was back again the weekend after, helping to take down those stations. And I've got to say, it was great fun. Everyone was safe. It all kind of worked very well. All of the planning seemed to be very slick. I was only involved in the doing bit of it. And it looked like there was a huge amount of work that had gone into planning all of that. And I think it all went off very successfully. So yeah, that was great. Like I say, everyone got on well. There was no arguments. There was lots of hard work. It was extremely hot. It was 30 plus degrees Celsius when I was working on that. So everyone's out in out in the open, working pretty hard, putting these stations together. But everyone got on with it. Everyone worked really well together. No one was sort of slacking off. No one was arguing. It all worked very well. And in fact, I didn't know anybody else that was there, but I just knew we were all amateurs together, and that didn't concern me. So it was good to get involved and good to be part of something. It's a big privilege for the UK to host that event this year, and that happens every 4 years. So it's good to be part of something like that, to actually be involved. So that was great, and I was very happy to be involved in that. I did manage to, because obviously after the event there was certain kit that was being sold off. I'd managed to get a couple of aerials, a couple of dipoles for a very good price, so I was quite pleased about that. So I'll be playing with those maybe over the next few weeks, commercially built ones. Other stuff, so we had a good talk at the Radio Club last week. A chap called Paul Phillips, G7KBR. He's the repeater keeper for a number of repeaters down in the Sussex area. But he actually home brews repeaters. I think he works in that industry anyway, so he's got a lot of knowledge and expertise. So he's talking about the repeaters that he runs, but he's also talked about actually some repeaters that he'd also built that are on the air. So that was a great talk, and Paul was a good speaker. So that's what I've been up to. Coming up, the club, we're arranging a visit next month to the Amberley Museum down on the south coast. So that should be fun. So we've got members of the club going down to that. So we're just kind of pulling that together in a minute. But they're having a communications day on the 16th of August. So we thought we'd go along and see what it's all about, Martin. So that's it from me. Thanks. Back to you.
Yeah. Well, you've been busy as well. Well, I feel guilty a little bit because I've had some strange ones. Yes, I spent 3 days at the WRTC with Colin and partly with yourself, Chris. And Colin released a extra podcast regarding it, and there is the video of the audio he released up on YouTube, plus Chris's chat to the building team and a couple of interviews I did, which I think went very well. Yeah, I was going to mention the repeater talk at the club. Yeah, it was interesting. The guy did a very good job there. I've had the real trouble. I've been trying to program my old Yaesu FTM100D. If I tell you I've been working on it for nearly 3 weeks, I cracked it this afternoon. I'm not going to spend the next 45 minutes telling you how to do it, but if somebody ever gets to a problem where they can't program the Yaesu FTM100D, give me a call. And they say that the programming lead doesn't work under Windows 11. Yes, it does if you install the very old driver for it under Windows 11. And I'll tell you how to get around some of the other problems I was having.
Martin?
Yeah?
I've had that problem programming other radios as well.
Yeah, well, I'll give you some other hints later.
No, I managed to get around it, and that's exactly what you said.
Yeah. Okay. Monday night, Chris and I were helping a guy at the club look at his hotspot that wasn't working correctly. He's taken it home. He's done some more work, contacted me. I think he's got a 40 Raspberry Pi. So next week at the club, I'm going to take a Raspberry Pi board up and fit it in his hotspot and check it if it works. I think it's the Raspberry Pi itself has got an internet problem. And apart from that, don't forget the 1st of August is another digital ICQ podcast talk group day. And 1st of August between 1200 UTC and 1600 UTC. So 4 hours, come and have a chat with us and see what's going on, ask questions, and all should be good. Right, all's left to me do now is to thank the guys for turning up and helping me with the podcast today. I'd like to thank Mr. Chris Howard, M0TCH.
Thanks, Martin. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it was a good one. I'd like to thank Mr. Martin Rothwell, M0SGL.
It's been fun. See you next time.
Will do. I'd like to thank Mr. Frank Howell, K4FMH.
It's been a blast as always, Martin.
We're trying to make it that way. And last but not least, I'd like to thank Mr. Leslie Butterfields, G0CIB.
Thanks, Martin. It's been an interesting one tonight.
Yeah,
Cheers.
it's different.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Bill Barnes couldn't join us. I got an email from him while we were recording saying that he's been hijacked at work and had to work late. So Bill's not ignoring you. He will be here another time. Right, all that's left for me to do is say 73 is now and move to the next part of the podcast. 73, guys.
See ya.
73.
Cheerio.
73.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.icqpodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.icqpodcast.com.
Now it's time to have a look at the news in brief. Me, Colin M6BOY. We start with news here in the UK that the RSGB has brought back its Club Finder service on its webpage. It's been redeveloped with the major works they've been doing to their website throughout this year. It's a fully responsive layout for mobile devices and it's much clearer with an accessible interface. So if you're looking for a club to join, maybe looking for training, etc. in the UK, and we say just generally looking to meet and talk more to your fellow hams, in the UK, then this could certainly be worth your while for you. Go to the RSGB's webpage for the information, and we'll put a link to this for you on the ICQ Podcast website for you, so you can check out that new or relaunched service from the RSGB. There's a call for operators needed for a new DXpedition. It's to Peter I Island, and the group are looking to build on the success of the Bovo Island DXpedition team. Their call sign will be 3 Yankee 0 Lima, and it'll be active from the remote glacier-covered Norwegian dependency in the Antarctic Sea. So I say lots of excitement around this one now, and this DXpedition will probably take place around Q1 of next year, around February time, but obviously a lot of planning going on, etc. If you're interested in part of the team or helping out to get what is going to basically be the 7th most wanted DX entity, I say we'll put links for you and email address, etc. on ICQPodcast.com for you, so you can get in contact with the guys from there. Good news from Icom. They've released software updates of their RSBA1 and their RSR8600 remote control software for various rigs. Usual things, obviously software improvements around stable driver installation and a reliable operation for Windows 11 users. So obviously a very important update with the demise of Windows 10. We'll pop a link to you for both of those updates for you, again on ICQPodcast.com, so you can check those out when you're back at your machine, etc. And you can update your software versions as required. Right, now we're going to head over to our features episode, which is STEM and radio for a brighter future. As always, hope you enjoy.
And now for this episode's feature from the ICQ Podcast.
Hi guys, for this feature I'm going to interview a young man called Jack. Now in a minute I'll let Jack introduce himself. I just wanted to top and tail this interview slightly. For many years, we have been promoting STEM via ham radio, and in some ways it was lovely to hear Jack reversing the information back to me. I have met a very number of talented youngsters in our hobby who are very passionate about our hobby, and when you meet them later in life, they're still in it and thoroughly enjoying themselves. Before we interviewed Jack, we had to get permission from his mum, who happened to be on site at the time. And she's a very lovely, supportive lady of Jack's abilities in our hobby. So once again, thanks to Mum for giving us the okay to do this interview. It was a shame that Jack's dad had to work and couldn't be with us on the interview. But don't worry, Jack, you did very, very well. So let's hear what Jack's got to say. Right, we're at WRTC 2026, and a few minutes ago I crept up on Jack while he was operating on the special events station. So, Jack, tell us your call sign and what you've been up to today.
Hiya, my name's Jack, that's Juliet Alpha Charlie Kilo, call sign M9JCK, I'm 12 years old, and today I've been doing some operating of the special event WRTC call sign, so it's been very fun.
Yeah, that sounds good. Now, you let slip you was a podcast, or you are a podcast listener, but Dad is also, and unfortunately he ain't here, is he? So he hasn't met us.
I wish he was here, but unfortunately he's got work to do. In fact, he'll probably be listening to this episode or wherever you decide to put this segment in his van. Probably he'll be listening to it like, "Go on, my son." So yeah, he'll find it somewhere. So yeah.
Do you want to give Dad's call sign an airing?
I will. Dan, I'm going to embarrass you. Call sign Mike 8 Whiskey November Echo, and his name's Wayne. So yeah.
So it's nice to have, family doing it together. And okay, you've met my son Colin over there. I think from your dad's point of view, having your son, it gives you something to talk about. It gives you a common interest, and going forward, I think you'll learn a lot, not just amateur radio, but I think you'll learn a lot going forward, as I have in the past. I mean, history and things like that, I couldn't, when I was at school, I didn't care how many wives Henry VIII had, but so there's lots of things come across in STEM with this, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. STEM has been a passion for life for me. I definitely enjoy the physics and certain stuff behind radios and the way they work. I also like aviation. It's another passion of mine, so I enjoy the physics behind aircraft. And with Dad, sometimes car journeys used to be silent. Now all of a sudden we're discussing formulas and Ohm's law and all sorts of different things that we never even used to care about. So it's brilliant that we got into this hobby together and that we could do it together and talk about all the things that's in this hobby, and it gives us a sort of, like you said, a common interest to sort of talk about when we're alone,
Yeah, and the other thing with this hobby, and I was saying to a gentleman this morning, I had a contact with somebody who was doing 145 Alive, and I said, radio is like fishing, electronic fishing. Sometimes you go out and you catch nothing. Other times you're reeling them in time after time. And that keeps the hobby fresh, doesn't it?
Exactly, and much like fishing, sometimes you get big ones, sometimes you get small ones. You get the very good DX into, I don't know, Asia, maybe Japan if you're lucky. And sometimes you get the small ones, maybe local. But a contact is a contact. That's the way I like to look at it. It's very fun in the perspective that there's always a story behind that person that you're contacting in this hobby.
It certainly is, and as you say, a contact's a contact, and I think you can learn a lot from other people. I mean, I have personally, and from what you're saying, it sounds like you have. What's the furthest you've worked?
The furthest I've worked is, Mark, I don't know if you're listening, K1RX in Boston in the States, so that was probably my furthest contact so far. I was jumping for joy after that contact. I was running 25 watts at the time when I had my foundation out of a vertical using an FT710 into the States. It was nothing like I'd ever seen before, and I was like, wow, it was definitely something amazing, that contact.
Yeah, I do get excited with you because my first contact was Boston, actually, in the States. My first contact with the States when I got licensed many years ago, and I was actually mobile, running 10 watts at the time. Now, I wasn't a foundation license holder, but my rig only ran 10 watts. But you have a smile from ear to ear, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. You sort of get that rewarding feeling afterwards, like, wow, I've just built this thing and I've put this together myself, and I've managed to work and speak to someone who's across the Atlantic Ocean. It's absolutely incredible. It's so fascinating, sort of, in a way, to work across the Atlantic Ocean. So that was what sort of made that contact very special for me. Now, I imagine your contact was also very special for you, so yeah.
Every contact is special for me, and like you say yourself. So the important thing is getting the contact, and you find out all sorts of things and about what's going on in that part of the world as well.
Exactly. So, for example, you may have people just giving signal reports, but then you may get into sort of, it all starts at a signal report in this hobby. Then after that, you're like, oh wow, that sounds really great. What rig do you have? What's the weather like? Where are you? What are you doing? What have you done this weekend? How do you have your cup of tea, or whatever you get into? It's such a diverse hobby in the fact that you can talk to anyone about anything. It's definitely really fascinating.
Yeah. So our hobby's mega wide. I mean, there's more and more things you can do in our hobby as the years go on because technology is improving. What's your favourite part of the hobby?
That's a very difficult question, actually. My favourite part of the hobby is making friends and talking to people and sort of learning people's stories and their backgrounds. It's almost like travelling but not leaving your chair. So, for example, I could talk to someone in Italy and learn about the food and the culture. So definitely just making friends and learning about cultures and people all around the world.
Yeah, well, now you've got your amateur radio licence. When you travel on holiday, and Mum's going to clip me round the back of the ear for saying this, often contact some amateurs in the area you're going. You'll find they'll invite you out to all sorts of things. And I mean, I used to go to Cyprus a lot, and the guys on Cyprus used to take me out to operating days and club meetings and all sorts of things. So it can be fun.
It definitely can be. I've been to Cyprus myself, and I find that there's quite a lot of amateur radio activity there. I've never operated there because obviously I'm an intermediate licence at the minute and can't without going against rules, so we wouldn't really want to do that. But I have called in to some local repeaters from there, and from that I've actually talked to someone about the weather in Cyprus, sort of leading back into talking about the culture and stuff. So also, I remember I was speaking to this person whilst I was in Cyprus myself, and they were like, and they were actually a radio ham, surprisingly, and I was like, oh, how? Wow, like, me too. So it's definitely loads of people everywhere. You find so many different things and so many different people. It's very incredible.
Yeah, well, I've met people that I work with who suddenly find out I'm a ham, and then they go and talk to their relations, and they find that some of their relations are. And people don't tend to shout very loud when they're in this hobby, do they?
No, which is actually something I feel like we need to change. I think we need to be proud that we're radio operators, and that we need to sort of be like, maybe we could advertise our hobbies slightly. I'm not saying better, but maybe slightly in different ways. For example, I know we do enough school activities, however we could sort of separate into sort of school categories and groups, sort of bringing it like to myself, sort of my age group, younger operators, getting them into the hobby, and you could sort of present it in a way as you're learning with the hobby. You can learn a lot with this hobby, like physics and STEM, but another one of them is languages. Obviously, people say, oh, well, languages, I can say 5 and 9 in about 10 different languages. So, yeah.
Well, I once I spoke to a gentleman, and they run a special event station about 2-3 years ago, and it was the first sortie of the Lancaster bomber in World War II. So it was the first time they flew them in anger in World War II. And I happened to talk to an amateur down in Wales, and he tells me his granddad flew that flight. So history, there's so much out there that, like you say, is interesting.
Exactly. For example, obviously I'm into aviation myself and aircraft, and I'm like, I would be very fascinated by that. And I was like, oh, could you tell me more? And then before you know it, you've been rag chewing to this person, man or woman, for about an hour, just sort of speaking to them about whatever you want, and like you've been speaking to them for hours and hours about aircraft, and you never find someone that you don't share some sort of interest with, or something that you know.
Yeah. So you've mentioned you like rag chewing. I have seen you contest operating on the station around the corner there. It was almost contest operating, wasn't it, when people were calling in, they want to get in the log?
Yeah, that was very enjoyable. It's sort of contesting with long call signs, I would say, is very, very tough. So do try it for yourself, though. It is really good. Sort of listeners out there, I definitely recommend it. It is very, very fun, but it's very difficult. You have to get into a rhythm, but once you get into that rhythm, it's enjoyable and time flies. Literally, before you know it, you've been operating for 3-4 hours. It is incredible.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I do a week, once a month talk group for the podcast. We do a 4-hour session, and on our digital systems, and that 4 hours goes very, very quick. So I do agree with you on that.
Definitely. It's very exciting to sort of like, you can wake up in the morning and spend your whole day doing radio without even knowing about it sometimes. Sometimes I go out to the field, and because my grandparents own a private field with their neighbours, so sometimes I'm like, right, I'm going down to grandma's, and then I go in the field, and then before I know it, the sun's setting. Like, I've been there for so long, but I'm having so much fun to the point where I just want to stay and want to keep going.
Yeah, I know what it's like. And nicely, I haven't met your granddad, but I'm sure nicely your granddad is kind of the naughty granddad, like I am, because I'm a granddad as well, in that your granddad's not the authority figure anymore, so he probably smiles and likes what you're doing and is interested.
Oh yeah, he's definitely interested. He's recently retired, so he sort of came up to me like, right, what do you do? Okay, right, this is cool. We'll crack a joke and stuff, so yeah.
And who knows, Grandad might get involved.
I've been trying to. I've been proposing it to him, sort of like, oh, get your foundation, it'll be all right. You can come and join us. He used to be a CBer back in the day, which gives him that sort of knowledge, and he's an electrician, so he was an electrician, so he's got everything he needs to get through the exam. So probably going to show this to him and say, Gramps, get in the hobby. So. Yeah,
in fairness, but equally, yeah, he's got a lot of the background, and going forward, don't rough him up. If he says no, we have to accept it. But in fairness, it'd be lovely if he did join you and your dad, because they'll give you the three of you to do something together.
I could agree, definitely. So if we had 3 people, then it was generally more fun to be in a community. For example, the community today, I've been going around shaking everyone's hand, having full conversations with people, sort of networking with everyone. It's been very good. So, for example, everything is more fun when you have friends in a community that you're with doing that thing. It just makes it 10 times more brilliant.
Yeah. Now, the only problem we have, unfortunately, is Mum's going to hate me for suggesting that you all get together, because Mum said she isn't going to do it. But we have to respect that if Mum says she doesn't want to do radio, she doesn't want to do it. But some ladies do, and we've got some very good ladies in this hobby.
Yeah, definitely. I've the utmost respect for the ladies in this hobby. They're very incredible, and I love the fact that they group up, and like once a year they make a special call sign, and I always make sure to go and work that call sign. So I think it's brilliant, and we do need more ladies in the hobby. It's very male dominated, so maybe we could get some more ladies into the hobby. That would be very cool. I have tried to get Mum into it personally, but she is. I see she's looking at me now, but she's giving me that look. Obviously, we've got to respect her wishes. Obviously, I have got her on the radio a few times under my call sign, and she's like, "Oh wow!" She felt quite rewarded afterwards. So maybe, but we have to respect her wishes.
Yeah, well, that's good. Then I'm going to close the interview up, Jack. I'm going to wish you every success in the hobby. I will say to you what I say to everybody. If you're going to go for your full license, do it when you want to and when you're ready. Don't let people beat you up. The hobby has to be fun. If it's not fun, we won't do it. But you're doing very, very well. For 12, I wished I'd have got my licence when I was 12.
Well, you've got your licence, that's the point, and you're doing very well in the hobby yourself. You're on the podcast, it's absolutely amazing. So I want to thank you and the podcast, and thank everyone that's listening, and definitely thank you to you, Dad. I love you lots. Thank you so much for sort of helping me with this hobby and buying me lots of cool rigs. So thank you very much.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Jack, and look after yourself.
You too, take care.
Thanks again for Jack for doing this interview for us, and a special thanks to Mum and Dad that allowed him to do it. And I think you would have got as much out of this as listening to somebody who's passionate about our hobby and is obviously going to be around for a long time in our hobby, growing it. So once again, Jack, thank you very much for giving me the interview.
Well, everybody, I really hope you enjoyed our features episode where we chatted there with young Jack, and certainly his passion for life, for ham radio, and the support of his parents, and I know that a really sort of credible chap. Also has a fantastic choice in podcasts as well, and we learnt a lot there from that chat with Jack. And the more and more we thought about it, we just thought it wasn't fair to chop up a bit of that interview and pop it into the specially arranged episode for WRTC. We really felt it deserved its own feature and its own thought about the depth of Jack and say what ham radio means to him and his future.
Certainly did, and he's very, very positive. And in many ways, it proves that father and son working together. Mum was very supportive. I believe she's not mega interested in doing ham radio, although she has been given the chance to make a few contacts under supervision, which we can now do with our license. But I think as a family, they're working very, very closely together. And as I say, Jack has found that what he's learning with amateur radio is certainly helping him with his schoolwork, his STEM schoolwork. So all being all, I think it was very positive, Colin.
Exactly. And after 18 years of doing this, maybe you and I can get some tips from him about how father and son can work together. Hi.
Yeah.
Oh, don't. Right, anyway, feedback time, and we love a bit of feedback here. This one came in from our friend Bill, Whiskey Charlie 2 Bravo, and he tells us about a piece of feedback he got from John, Alpha Juliet 1 Delta Mike, and it came from the operations from the 13 Colony Special Event Station. And it say he dropped Bill a QSL card with a lovely hammer note. It says he's a long-term fan of the ICQ podcast and always enjoys Bill's contributions on the show, and as I say, and the show in general. So we wanted to pass on our thanks there, John, for reaching out to Bill and letting us know, that you're a wonderful listener to the ICQ podcast, and really hope you continue to enjoy, as I say, the ICQ podcast. So thank you very much for letting us know, and as I say, that lovely handwritten card, I know mean a lot to Bill, so thank you very much. Now, you can take part in our next digital talk group, which will be taking place on Saturday, the 1st of August. And all the information you need to find out about that talk group is on ICQPodcast.com. And you can, have a chat with your favourite presenters, your fellow listeners, etc., to, use that lovely digital radio you've got and take part from there. This one's timed, I believe, more towards the North American time zone. So do check out, ICQPodcast.com for all the latest information there. And so you'll be able to make sure you can have a chat with us there what is next weekend on the digital talk group there. We also would like to thank our donors this episode. It's our 18th birthday this month, and Chris Carney, Golf Whiskey 4 Romeo Echo Romeo, Walter Washburn, KT0 Delta, and Costine Dino Papas, KL0 Sierra. Thank you very much for your very kind donations to the ICQ podcast and your birthday wishes. We really do appreciate it. You still have time to get involved in our birthday celebration and popping along a donation to the ICQ podcast birthday by visiting ICQPodcast.com/donate. Very simple logic we ask you to do. Obviously, if you've got value for your ICQ podcast, please consider us. Send donation our way for the value you receive, and everything you send us helps us keep the show advert free and produce it on a fortnightly basis. So please do consider us, and with that donation. So, Dad, I know you'll be looking forward to the digital talk group next week. I'm sure you've got everything all, charged up and ready to go in terms of hotspots, etc. Just thinking out loud, is there any tips for anybody joining that digital talk group? Things like updating firmware on hotspots and things like that you might be able to give our listeners to make sure they get the best success out of that event?
Well, the hotspots, if you're running the Pi-Star software, if you've left your hotspot on overnight or for a couple of days, they automatically update. If you haven't, just set your hotspot to do an update, just in case there's extra things you need to find. In fairness, join us, have a chat, tell us what you've been up to, because we're just as interested in what you've been up to. We don't want to be telling you always what we're up to. So it's a general chat, and I think it'll be fun. I'll send the notices out to the various groups within the next few days. Unfortunately, I can't send as many out on Facebook as I used to, because Facebook got me for spamming a few weeks back. But I try and inform as many of you as I can about this. And it'll be fun. Trust me, it'll be fun. And we'll have a good chat.
Yeah, exactly. Certainly look forward to everybody that will join us there. And not only that, as your favourite presenter, who will also hopefully be there as well, so you can have a chat with your favourite presenter as well, at that talk group. Of course, we'd like to thank the guys taking part in News Roundtable. Many thanks, guys, for your wonderful views. I know we've gone a little bit long this episode, but we, love the views and the passion of the discussion, and really hope you enjoy it too. So please, guys, I hope you do appreciate that from there. Right, well, that just about wraps up episode 489 of the ICQ podcast. As I say, really hope you enjoyed this episode as always. And as always, we will do the most important job of our weekend, and that's find Mrs. B a little treat and a cup of tea, to look after her.
Yeah, certainly do that, Colin, as soon as we finish recording this. So no problems at all.
No problems. Well, I say 73s to you all, and look forward to catching you again in a fortnight's time. 73s.
73.